Hi there, this is Andrew from Crowdin, and today I'm going to show you how Crowdin works for translators, for proofreading, and plus we have in context mode for easier websites localization. So everything will be briefly shown today. So what is Crowdin first of all? Crowdin is localization management platform where different kind of content can be localized. It can be website, mobile app, some help documentation, actually anything. Anything you upload you have to translate, it can be translated in different language. Everything starts from the moment when you create your own account in Crowdin and set up a project. I already have it here. This is how the project page looks like, and now I have already invited another person as a translator, so it's here. So I'll show you first of all how Crowdin looks for translators. After logging into Crowdin, on the profile page we see projects we have joined. So there are two types of projects. It can be public project that you can find yourself here on our explore page. There are different sections, advanced search feature where you can specify your language, join and help as a volunteer. Or else you can be hired translator freelancer and invited to the private project in Crowdin. So how it works? You receive email invitation from Crowdin and from manager. You receive invitation from manager, you join the project, and this is how it will look for you. On the project page we see the list of available languages, so we just click on language we prefer. Let's click on Ukrainian. Here you will see the list of files, progress for each file, and after clicking on the file you will see the list of strings to be translated, their status. So red means the string is not translated yet. This is translation of basic Android project. Let me quickly show you how the file looks from inside. So it looks this way. Here we have key for each string, it's always unique. Here we have texts, one by one. And imagine how it's difficult to translate it using Notepad or any other tool, because if you make any change even like this, file will be broken and application won't read it. So this is why Crowdin exists, and it should simplify the process a lot. After the file is uploaded to Crowdin, you may notice that only translatable texts are extracted and shown here. And how it looks, we select any string. Let's say this one. Here we see the text itself that we need to localize. Here you will see some context. If you have any questions about the string, you don't know what does it mean, you can always click request context button and ask manager to provide more context, like this. We submit a request and manager will see the following. He will be notified first of all here that someone asked you to provide additional context. So we click here, we go into the editor directly, and we see this translator asks us to provide some more context. So we can reply and we can say that it's greeting for new users. We reply, and as a manager this issue is resolved. So I click this button, translator will be also notified, of course, and now translator knows more how to translate this string, what does it mean. It's very easy to collaborate by Crowdin because you can always leave a comment, mention anyone. So I type like only at character. I see the person who recently replied me and say thanks. And you can discuss any string. It doesn't matter. For each string you have separate comments. So you can always ask, discuss any string with your team, and thus provide a quality translation. So let me type the first translation here. Also, you may notice there is machine translation suggested here. So it's just to boost your performance if you see it's correct, because it's very simple string. So of course, in 99% cases, machine translation will be okay. So I click just click here and click save. Click here, click save, and so on. So let me check this one now. Now, just a quick overview of elements you see here in the system. So I'll start from beginning. So here in the editor you will find file menu, and from here, if manager has activated corresponding option, you will be able to download file for a flight translation. And if you for some reasons you cannot work online within Crowdin, probably your company doesn't allow you to do this, you can always download XLIF file from the system and translate it offline, and after translation is done, upload those XLIF translations to Crowdin. And as you know, XLIF is supported by probably by any CAT tool that exists, and thus, you can, even if you can't work online, you can always provide translations using those XLIF files. If there are many files here in the project, you can select all strings option, and this way you can preview all strings which exist in the project in total. What I mean, if there are, let's imagine there are hundreds of files and it's difficult to open them one by one. So there is all strings button, and then applying a filter, for example, untranslated, you can easily identify which string is translated, which is not. So I apply untranslated. You may notice that strings I have translated few moments ago have disappeared. I see only untranslated content. So again, I can it's not recommended to copy machine translations all the time, but it's just for a demo. There is also a replace in suggestions feature. It's the same as find and replace. So if you want to replace something in your translation, I just click replace in suggestions button. Here I type what I need to replace. Let's say I want to replace this word with something else, with small letter. In whole language, it can be in whole language or only in this file, but I'll apply it for everything. You can also preview, of course, to see which strings will be affected. And after I click replace selected, this is it. So we have small. From here we can switch across languages quickly. I need to apply another filter, and here it is. So you can view any string in any language. From here you can make contact manager, open some internal forum in your project, and something else. After clicking on view button, you can switch into voting mode, which is more convenient for translators. Or if you are a proofreader in the project, you will see proofreading mode here. How it works? Let me switch into French. So there are some suggestions made here. So here we see strings translated, and I can vote, but as I see, all translations here are submitted from my name, so of course I cannot vote, upvote, downvote my own suggestions. So let me try quickly to do the following. In the same French language, I will add some a bit different translation by clicking here. We also detect any inconsistency in translation. So if original text ends with exclamation mark, but your translation doesn't, you will be always notified that potentially there is something wrong. But I need to save this translation, so I click save. Let's switch into the editor, and we see the following. Now I can vote because this suggestion was submitted by manager. So if I think that this translation is valid, I click plus, and translation now has +1 vote. Voting is mostly used in public projects where not 2-3 translators per language participate, but probably even hundreds of them. So with power of community, it's easy to identify which string translation is better, which is worse. So if we see 300 votes for this suggestion in the editor, it means that exactly this translation will be exported from Crowdin. On the right side, you should find the following. So to simplify the translation process for you, so you won't use your mouse all the time, there are hotkeys. Nearly for any action, you can save translations, scroll up and down across strings, vote, approve suggestions, and so on. Everything that is described here, plus it can be modified. So if you prefer to save translation pressing tab key, no problem, just click it and press save button. Let's set defaults and I save changes. From here on the right panel we should find, let me switch to basic translation view, and here we see the following. We see comments, and if there are any terms added to the project, we will see them listed here. Let's switch into Ukrainian, and I want to show you this particular string. You may notice that in the editor it is underlined. It means that this phrase has a term description, and after placing our mouse on it, we see that this is brand name, so it shouldn't be translated, and we should leave it as it is. Plus, there is suggested translation in Ukrainian languages. I'm currently in Ukrainian, so after just clicking on it, we see it's automatically copied into translation field. So I press save button, translation becomes saved. Here, if we switch into terms tab, we will see the same. So here is a term, so here is suggested translation and description. So it shouldn't be touched, it should be it should look the same way in any language. Even if you don't know what that specific term means, you can always search for it here. We have integration with Wikipedia, so in your native language you will see some descriptions. What does it mean? How potentially it should be translated. There are also editor settings, so if you prefer to adjust editor according to your needs, you can just click this button. Here you can set up minimum match ratio for translation memory suggestions. So of course, all translations made in Crowdin are automatically recorded into project's translation memory. So I will decrease that match ratio here. Now let's go. I'll try to translate. Those strings are quite similar. Password recover. As here we see password repeated many times. So here it is. You may notice that here is current. This is current password, and we see a TM match suggestion, 62% match that change password, not current password, but change password was translated this way. And it's already a suggestion. At least we know how to translate password in a good way. So this way, translations will be always consistent. The same strings or similar strings won't be translated differently, and it's one of the main goals in localization. Now let's check filters quickly. There are many of them. You can combine them, of course. So let's scroll from the top. This is default filter, so how it works, all strings which are not translated are always listed on the top, and those which are translated are here in the bottom. If we apply untranslated, only untranslated strings will be shown, so after we accomplish, this list will be totally empty. Yep, need to be voted. Translations for which you didn't vote yet. Here we can filter translations by translations that were done with help of translation memory. So it means you copied on on the translation memory suggestion. Let's imagine it was 100% match. So using this filter you will find such translations. Or empty. Empty means machine translation, so if translation was submitted by clicking here on machine translation and then save button was clicked, it is considered as machine translation suggestion, so it was submitted by you without any changes. Filter for strings with comments, with unresolved issues, like you remember I requested a context. Here, in advanced filter, there are also a wide variety of available filters, so you can filter strings by date they were added to Crowdin. Let's imagine 3 days ago there was update in Crowdin project, so new strings were added, and you're contacted by manager who asks you, there are many strings in our project, but those added 3 days ago have highest priority. So, you know, today we have March 9th, so I need to select this date, something like that, and filter strings. So this way I'll easily find strings that were added 3 days ago. The same if you want to filter out strings that were recently changed by managers, because managers can not only upload the strings, but they can also modify existing strings. And if you want to be sure that modified strings have correct translations, because managers have a way to keep translations for modified strings. You can apply this filter and all those strings will be filtered here on the left, and you can quickly check whether everything is valid. And here is a filter that can help you to find when, if I specify something like this, system will try to discover all all translations made on March 8. Let's go filter it. And different variety of filter. If you want to find strings that have translations but also have comments, no problem. Strings without any translations, strings with unresolved issues. If you want to find strings that were translated by someone, let me type manager's username. You see it's empty, but I remember I suggested something from manager name. Let's check this string. So let's switch here. Translated by. Sorry, wrong username specified as I see. It should be this. Yeah. It worked. One string was discovered. Here it is. And some additional filters. Sorting strings by date, edit, alphabet order, length, and so on. So let's close this one. Now let's briefly review how proofreading works in Crowdin. So currently I'm a translator and I can only vote for suggestions, but I cannot validate anything until project manager will promote me to proofreader. So let me switch into the project settings in Crowdin. I go into translators. This is our demo translator profile. I open it and I can say that we can set global role, so it means this person will be proofreader in all languages, but it's not quite common. Commonly people are just granted with permission, proofread permission in their language. So I see that this person participated in French and Ukrainian, but I know it's mostly Ukrainian translator, so I set proofreader role here in profile. And now let's switch to profile, refresh the page. We are in French language, let's switch back to Ukrainian. And here it is. You may notice that now instead of plus, there is a approve button. So I click on it, string by string I validate it. I also mentioned that you have a way to switch into proofreading mode. So after clicking view proofread mode, here you will find everything that you need to validate. So I approve this translation, this one, but let's imagine this one is not correct because it should be something like that. And I save translation, it becomes approved, validated, and again, I approve. Also in Crowdin we have a spell check. A spell check available for translators, for proofreaders, and here if there is any inconsistency in translation, let's make something like, sometimes there is a problem when translations contain 2 spaces in a row. Let's try. Even during translation process we notify you about that, but who knows, probably a translator likes to leave 2 spaces in a row, or it was done by mistake and she just clicked save anyway button and proceed to the next string. So again, here I will add a translation. By the way, I have noticed a typo here, so you see it's not valid English text. So for manager, I can leave a comment with issue type mistake in the source string, and now let's just simply copy this text and I say to manager that, hey, it should look this way. F was missed here. So I send. Again, manager will be notified, so they will just update the source text in Crowdin, and consequently here now we will see successfully. So I have added a suggestion with a new line. So now let's switch into proofreading mode, and we should find more QA check issues. So first of all, here we have some spell check suggestion. Let's try something like this. I save translation again. I approve this one, and here we see that translation contains multiple spaces in a row. So after clicking here, we see there are 2 spaces. I need to remove one of them and submit translation and validate it, approve. And here we see that original text doesn't end with a new line, plus there is a spell check error because there is no such word in Ukrainian. So I submit beta translation and I remove that empty new line and save suggestions. Basically, that's it. In proofreading mode, you may notice filters are a bit different. So there is a new QA check filter. So you can filter strings by any type or find any QA check errors. And those filters. Also Crowdin works perfectly fine with strings containing plural forms like this. So how it is translated? First of all, you know that there are official pluralization rules, and each language has different number of plural forms. In French, like in English, there are only 2 plural forms. This one and other. In Ukrainian, we have 4 plural forms, one few many other. In Arabic language, there are 6 plural forms. And for right to left languages, you may notice that even editor is a bit different. So translations, of course, are typed from the right side, as it should be. Let's switch back to Ukrainian, and I'll quickly show you how plural forms are translated. So this is valid translation for for number 1, 21. Here, if you don't know to which numbers this plural form corresponds, you can always click here and you see that it's for number from 2 to 4, 22, 24, 32, 34, and so on. It should be like this then. Again, we click here, number from 5 till 19, so it means it should be like this. And fourth plural form, it's for 1.5 and so on. It should look like this. So we save translation, only then string will become green, translated. If any of plural forms are not translated in Crowdin, you will see the string as yellow here. So let me restore recently deleted suggestion, and here is, now we have everything translated. After there is also, besides plural forms like this, we have in Android, let me show you, in original file it looked this way. So one, other in English, here is a text. Let's switch into Crowdin as a manager. Select Ukrainian and download the file. I'll show you how it looks on export. So you may notice that we can even compare. Here in English we have 2 plural forms, one other, but after exporting the file in Ukrainian language, there are 4 plural forms, everything according to documentation, because it should be this way. And then in Android application, this translation will be shown properly for corresponding number. Besides of those plural forms, it is also possible in Crowdin to work with ICU syntax. It looks this way, so strings are quite complicated, but translators should always translate only those parts, texts, which are not highlighted with any color, not with pink, green. This should be omitted. And for you remember, I mentioned there are 4 plural forms in Ukrainian, and to make translation process more simple, so yes, 2 plural forms in English, but 4 plural forms in Ukrainian. And I just click this button, copy source text, and Crowdin will automatically insert necessary plural forms here. And how it's translated? I need to translate this part. This way. This. We translate it this way, and here we can even try to replace it with some name. Let's type Andrew. And here, using those switches, you may notice that when I change the number here, translation also becomes a bit different according what we have here. So if it's view number 2, translation will look this way. If it's number 5, actually it's the same because we have the same here. Let's try to type 1.5, and here we go. From other plural form, this suggestion is loaded here. Here we have, if I type something, stage, here is, so using those switches we can preview translation, how it will look in application. So it's because ICU syntax, you see, it's not very easy to read, but using those filters, possibility to specify numbers, it should be much easier. Let's try to save this translation. One space. But let's save it as it is. Now let's switch into French language. Here, if I copy the source string, of course I see only 2 plural forms, because you remember French has 2 plural forms. And the same for Arabic. When I copy suggestion, there will be 1, 2, 3, 6 plural forms will be listed here, so translators will know how strings should be translated. Let's switch back to our language. So, yeah, this is how Crowdin looks commonly for most of file formats we support. XML, JSON, properties, INI, and others. But for file formats like HTML, Markdown, Crowdin has also a editor mode, preview mode. Let's switch into as a translator, I have also joined this public project. So here we have lots of Markdown files, and here is this is article. This is just an article. Let's imagine HTML will look completely the same way. So on the left side we see strings, texts. that need to be translated. And when we type a translation here, you may notice that on the left side, it's automatically updated, so you can preview translation, how it will look like in article after it will be published on the site officially. I'll do this translation, save it, and the system automatically switches to the next string, and string by string you accomplish the document. And again, yes, you can preview all translations changes made here on the left side when you type something here. If you prefer to work string by string, no problem, you have this switch. And you can then easily filter untranslated strings, strings that need to be voted, and so on. Also, this button highlights green means translated, red means untranslated. So this way, using this pencil, you can easily identify which strings are not translated yet. This eye, it's a preview of translation. So if you see that when I click on it, we see preview in Ukrainian. If I disable, I see original article. But yes, it's the final part about in-context feature we have. Let's imagine it's website translation. And of course, it would be easier to translate the site when you see it. It's better than any screenshot managers can offer. And after integration of in-context is done by managers who invited you. Their developers usually integrate our in-context into their website, and they will provide you a URL to the site where you can open this in-context mode and do translations there. I have already it here on democrowdin.com. It's already integrated, so we go here. Here we will be asked to select a language. Languages list will correspond to languages you have in the project in Crowdin. So I select Ukrainian again, and here you may notice that this is our site, but all strings are red here. It means those strings are not translated yet. So I already see some TM match here in this editor, so I can even click on it. And here we go. Here is translation, we save it. Again, contact button. Fortunately, I have lots of TM matches, so I can quickly copy everything. And it works with any kind of sites. It's platform independent, and you see it's very, very easy to use. You just click near the string you need to localize, like this. Let's try to submit some translation, save changes, and so on. All translations made here are they are not published on the site instantly, but they will go to your project in Crowdin, and then this translation can be reviewed by someone, and only developers and managers, they decide when those translations should be published on the site. So it's just to achieve the maximum quality. Yes, again, it works with anything, with any elements. Let's try to submit this one. It works with dynamic content as well. What I mean by dynamic content is when we switch into activity tab. Here you will find, you see strings look pretty fine, but if let's open the first one. You see how it looks like. It's ICU syntax. So let's try to copy even this translation, and you see how it looks. Now we can preview this translation in real time. So instead of all those variables, system has already substituted with expected project name, number, username, and so on. Yep. Basically, that's it. Let's switch to our main profile page. So now I have 3 projects listed here on the translation section. Yep, and I really hope it was quite helpful tutorial, so you know much better how to use Crowdin, how to use editor. In any case, if you will get any questions, I encourage you to contact us directly, so you just go to contact form, submit your request, we will reply you instantly and help with anything. Yes, and personally wishing you only the best experience with our localization tool and only a pleasant localization work. Cheers!